Hello there, Kids Cook Real Food. Katie Kimball here with the Healthy Parenting Connector. Every week, we bring you experts who have the information you need to raise truly healthy kids. And this month is Depression Awareness Month. So we've been, kind of spotlighting authors talking about depression and anxiety, authors interview guests. And today I want to talk about what I feel like is one of the most concerning statistics that I've read this year. It just my heart just dropped into my feet. And it's hard to breathe when you hear that the second leading cause of death in kids ages 10 to 24 here in America is suicide. This is behind only accidents. That's the first. And when we think about how nervous we get about our kids, like getting cancer or, catching some disease that would cause them to be hospitalized or something, like we do spend some time worrying about that and changing our lives because of it. But accidents, which, some of which are just not preventable, and suicide, which is often linked to depression, and it is preventable. And that's my message of hope today, is that I truly believe that no child needs to feel, no person, no human being needs to feel like there is so little hope that they need to leave this world. And it actually came up at our dinner table not too long ago. Sometimes we watch like back episodes of America's Got Talent at dinner. We just show the kids the good ones. And one of the packages before the person was performing was about how his father had committed suicide. Or no, maybe it was American Ninja Warrior. Anyway, those are like the only two shows we watch. And of course, my oldest knows what it is, 14 years old. My 11-year-old doesn't really. She's like, Mom, what does that mean? Why would someone do that? And the 8-year-old, is starting to listen, and it's like, oh my goodness, how do you explain this? Giving the kids just as much as they need so that they don't get scared, right? And I said, here's what it means. It means that they killed themselves. And why would someone do that? Well, I don't know. I guess some people just get so sad that they feel like they don't want to be here anymore. They just want to run away. And I don't know if that was right or not, but I do know that we don't want to give kids more information than they need. So I tried to just answer that. And then I did talk with my 11-year-old daughter later by herself at bedtime a little bit more just about how sad this is. And it came up as well on the Kids Cook Real Food Facebook page not too long ago. And I shared that link where we're sharing this video. I talk a lot about helicopter parenting and like doing too much for our kids and the vital importance of teaching kids independence and life skills. Like that's my mission and passion. I want to get kids in the kitchen, but it completely expands to, all areas of just raising independent, healthy adults. And that means kids who can function for themselves and who are resilient in the face of adversity. Well, this particular picture says helicopter parenting is creating a generation of kids who aren't capable of solving their own problems. And, we just shared a little like 2-sentence bit with it about how with all this help and making life easier, our teens are feeling depressed, suicidal, anxious, and entitled. We can do better. Again, I'm trying to encourage parents, like it doesn't need to be this way. We can empower our kids both through cooking skills and other areas of life. And unfortunately, the internet took this in the wrong way and said, disappointed to see you use the current epidemic levels of depression, anxiety, and suicide among youth to further your cause, as if I'm just all about a buck. Like I would like to save all of America's children from depression and suicide. So let's talk about that, because as this conversation continued on our Facebook page, someone shared a link to Mayo Clinic. And what does Mayo Clinic say about depression and suicide? Well, guess what? Completely confirms my whole point that I was making about what kids need. So I'm going to quote this from Mayo Clinic, and I need to add this link wherever we share this video and this audio. One of the causes that Mayo Clinic lists about depression is, quote, learned patterns of negative thinking. Teen depression may be linked to learning to feel helpless, rather than learning to feel capable of finding solutions for life's challenges. If that is not a definition of what happens to a child when parents helicopter and do everything for them, I don't know what it is. So thank you, Mayo Clinic, for exactly proving my point. Again, quote from Mayo Clinic, one of their only four preventative steps for depression, which, by the way, in other places they link depression, unequivocally to suicide. It's not the only cause, but it is a big one. One of the 4 preventative steps is this. It's a 3-part process. Take steps to control stress, increase resilience, and boost self-esteem to help handle issues when they arrive. Again, thank you, Mayo Clinic, for being on my team and encouraging parents to do exactly what they need to do. So today, we're going to unpack those 3 little pieces that Mayo Clinic recommends, okay? So I believe that these are 3 things parents can do to depression-proof your children. Nearly, right? We know that everything that's waterproof isn't always waterproof, that we can't have 100% guarantee of anything, but dude, right? We got to try. We got to try to do our best to help our kids feel like they have a sense of self. And if they have a sense of self, they are much less likely to feel depressed and even consider suicide. Okay, so number 1, control stress, Mayo Clinic says. And so I would say there are a couple very practical strategies we can do to help our kids control stress. Step number 1 is to make sure your own stress is not apparent to them. Okay, in my Stress Mastery Educator training, I learned about mirror neurons. So these are actual neurons in your brain that when you see something in someone else, your own body mirrors it. Okay, it's not a conscious process. So in the case of a yawn, for example, have you ever noticed that if someone yawns, you tend to yawn after that? Mirror neurons fire more actively when there is a bond of love between the 2 people. So if a child sees his or her parent yawn, they're even more likely to yawn. Isn't that funny? And it's not like they think about it. It's a non-conscious reaction or a subconscious reaction. I forget the difference between those 2 words. Anyway, in the case of stress, imagine a parent at the table and the tone of voice is just a little more terse because that parent's feeling a lot of stress that day and hasn't been able to kind of like release it and recharge before dinner. The mouth is a little pursed, the brow is a little furrowed. The child does not look at the parent and think, oh, my parent is stressed, now I will feel stress. Literally, the mirror neurons in their brain just mimics what they see and what they sense about their parent's tone and facial expression and what they talk about. So when we feel stressed, our kids literally in their bodies feel that stress, even probably if we think we're trying to hide it. So it's really, really important for you as parents to master your own stress. And we will link back to a 2-part series that I did on the Healthy Parenting Connector about basic stress mastery and recharge techniques, which are super important. So then second, you've got to teach your kids those same recharge techniques, how to work hard and then rest, and work hard and then rest. Our bodies are designed to oscillate, to go up and down. If you look at brain waves and heart waves, they go up and down. Breathing goes in and out. We sleep and we wake. Everything in life is an oscillation of in and out and up and down. And it's never a flat line. A flat line is death, right? And so if we have a flat line of just pushing and working hard and being overscheduled, that's death. That's too much. That's too much for our bodies. So let's set realistic expectations for our kids. Okay, instead of grade goals, doing your best goals. Right? I tell my kids, I want you to do your best with the gifts God's given you. That's all I ask. If you're doing less than your best and you're getting an A, I'm not really happy with your performance, right? If you're doing your very, very best and you're getting a C, I'm incredibly pleased with what you're doing, right? So it's not about grades, it's about realistic expectations. And by the way, next week, the interview expert will be Sarah Jeanette, who talks all about anxiety and the pressures she felt as a child, the terrible repercussions that had in her life, and how she's committed her life to helping young high school and college age women reduce their anxiety. Super cool. So you'll get even more techniques next week. But number 1, reduce your own stress. Don't let it show in your face, especially at the dinner table. Number 2, set realistic expectations for your kids. Do not push them too hard, parents. That does them no service. And number 3, teach your kids how to recharge. Use some of those same strategies, the breathing, the calming down, giving gratitude at the end of the day. So it's the same stuff for adults and children that we can help to control our stress. And that's step 1. Mayo Clinic says control stress so that kids have more capacity to deal with issues when they come up. Number 2, Mayo Clinic says we need to boost our kids' self-esteem. Now, I kind of cringe when I hear that word self-esteem, because I think it's been a little bit overused and overpushed in our society, and we've actually diminished the value and the meaning of the word self-esteem. We kind of say like, oh, our kids need self-esteem, and that means we have to tell them that they're doing everything right all the time. That is a misinterpretation of self-esteem, okay? Self-esteem isn't, good job, honey, good job, you did everything right. Self-esteem is creating arenas for children to do something that has a purpose. And no one should have to tell them that they did it well, because it should be self-grading. You should be able to tell that you did it well because it had a purpose, and if that purpose is served, you've done it well. I tell parents all the time that the best way to get kids motivated to cook and to learn to cook and to use cooking skills is to have them cook for someone else. Okay, that's giving them genuine, authentic work. People need to eat at least 3 times a day. And if a child can use their skills to fulfill that person's need, they can see it. They can see it when people enjoy their food. And yes, for my purposes, that helps motivate them to learn to cook, which is great. And that's my goal for every child in America, to learn to cook. But as an awesome, like, a side benefit, it's not even a side benefit, it's the primary benefit, this does help raise their sense of self. It really helps them to believe that they have worth and that they have purpose because they've seen it happen. So I do believe, number one, giving your children genuine, authentic work to do, only praising them when it actually matters, and then allowing them to follow their passions and gain competency. Psychologists have identified something they call the competence-confidence loop, that when you gain a little competence, when you know how to do something, you feel more confident about it, and that pulls you back in to want to gain more competence. So whatever your child is passionate about, whatever they can do to serve the world, help them get just a little competence, just a little ability to do something and do it well. And that is going to raise their confidence. And that, I believe, is where genuine self-esteem comes from, and where people, children especially, feel like they have value in the world. Number 3, according to Mayo Clinic, is to increase their resilience, to help them handle issues when they arise. I love this one. And I'm going to refer you back to my interview with Jessica Leahy, author of The Gift of Failure, who talks about how important it is for kids to learn how to fail, to experience what that feels like, and to problem solve their way out of failure when they are children, not when they're out of your house and failure, the stakes are higher and it matters so much more. I'm going to refer you back to my interview with Jessica Sherman, author of Raising Resilience. And she talks all about how both physically, through diet, nutrition, and movement, and sleep, and mentally, psychologically, we need to help our kids build this resilience. My mom had an experience at the beginning of this year. She's a sub teacher and was pulled into beginning of the year meetings. All the teachers had to come together in this school, K through 12, and talk about how they can prevent bullying, partly because they had a high school student commit suicide last year. It just breaks my heart. It breaks my heart that that can happen to even one child. And we know that this is not a unique story, unfortunately. This is happening all across the country and all around the world, and it's got to stop. And what's interesting about these teachers coming together, though, is that they talked about how to prevent bullying, basically like from a very external standpoint. Like, if bullying happens, how can we teach kids to report? How can we stop it? I said, Mom, did they ever talk about like how to build resilience, like how to teach kids how to handle it more for themselves, or was it all just what the teachers can do? And she stopped dead silent. And she said, no, not a single idea was brought up about that. Huge gap. That's a huge miss, because we cannot control every person's speech. We cannot control all the bullies, and we should do everything we can to stop bullying and protect our kids. But on the other hand, it is going to serve them so much better and so much longer in life if we can help kids be able to have the resilience to be made fun of, to have something go wrong, because life will happen to them. Life will happen in school, life will happen out of school, life will happen when they're 25. Things are going to go wrong. And the best gift we can give these kids is to build their resilience, to understand that they can get through those problems. And there's, again, both of those interviews are going to be super helpful for you as you try to build your kids' resilience. But just a very quick actionable tip is to remind children of the finiteness of the problem and the longevity of their lives. Okay, kids get stuck in an issue and they kind of see like, this is happening now and this is horrible and this is where I am and this is all I can see. So even with little kids, if we can help extend their vision beyond the present, right? So for little kids, maybe it's just till tomorrow. For older kids, it's till next week. For teenagers, it's till you're 25. This, you know, what will this be like when you're 25? How will this affect you when you're 25? And it may, you know, it's not a magic pill, right? It's not going to be like, oh, well, when I'm 25, it won't matter. I feel better now. No, but it's just expanding their vision and helping them have those skills of seeing toward the future and realizing that this problem will not last forever. It will be temporary and they can get through it. So a huge hat tip to Mayo Clinic, I think, for these 3 things that parents can do to depression-proof their kids. Number 1 is control stress. 2 is boost self-esteem. Please do it in authentic, genuine ways to build the child's self-worth and not just tell them good job. And 3 is to increase resilience. And I do believe that number 2 is the foundation for number 3. Kids have to have a self-worth in order to be able to be resilient and recover and bounce back from the problems that happen in their world and in their lives. And I would also refer you to, I just listened to a great podcast. Katie Wellness Mama interviewed Margot Bisnow, author of Raising an Entrepreneur. And she interviewed over 60 very young adult entrepreneurs and said that one of the only common threads she noticed among them was adversity. They had all had some sort of adversity. And parents these days, if we are fixing all our problems for our kids, if we're helicopter parenting, if we're lawnmower parenting and paving the way and making life easy for them, we honestly and very sadly may be paving the way for mental health issues both now and in the future. And that is, of course, the last thing we want to do. So parents, man, let your kids fail. Let them try hard things. Let them take risks. Let them know what adversity feels like and begin to help them build the capacity and the resilience and the skills to deal with that adversity, to problem solve their way around it, through it, under it, over it, and know that they will be okay on the other side and that they have you there supporting them, but not doing everything for them. All right, this is Depression Awareness Month, and it's up to us to continue to educate ourselves about the root causes of how these things happen and, unfortunately, where they're going, right, which could be towards suicide. We want our kids way on the other side. We want to build resilience and build capacity in our kids, help them reduce their stress, and really raise kids who are depression-proof, who would never consider leaving this world without us, who know that they have a purpose and a meaning and a value in this world that is beyond what they can feel in the present moment. I'm Katie Kimball for the Healthy Parenting Connector. I appreciate you being here, and we'll be back next week with that interview with Sarah Jeanette on anxiety. Can't wait to see you then.